Hey YouTube, Vermont Prepper here, and I just have a couple thoughts and update on the Wuhan virus. As I sit here in the nice Florida sun, safe and sound, near pool in Sarasota, I can't help but think of what's going on around the world. It's not just China anymore. You're seeing outbreaks in Korea, you're seeing outbreaks in Iran, and I'll get to that because that's, to me, indicates something new. You're seeing outbreaks all over in different countries. So, Korea, South Korea at least, has 893 cases as of today. And that's just, I think it's a new 50 cases new since last night. I think that's the most outside of China. And then Iran, that one really concerns me because they have a number of cases. I believe it was 60, but out of those 60, 15 have died. And to me, that is a really big jump in the mortality rate. Granted, it's a small sample. It's not something that you can really base a lot of statistics on, but if that trend continues, to me that indicates that the virus has mutated into a more deadly version, and that by itself is very scary because it is highly transmissible, and we're just seeing new videos out of China. I'm going to link one which is particularly disturbing. I'll describe it. It's basically a guy at a checkpoint, and I urge everybody to watch the link. And it's supposedly in Wuhan, but it's a guy at a checkpoint in a car. He rolls down the window, and of course the authorities are dressed in their full garb, with the suits and the masks, and one has a shield. And the guy rolls down the window. They take his temperature, and apparently the temperature was elevated. And I guess I couldn't understand what they were saying, but I guess they were asking him to step out of the car. He doesn't comply with it, and he actually moves forward, but another truck blocks him off, and he finally steps out of the car, and they put road spikes across so that he can't get any further. But he steps out of the car and he takes his mask off, and you see the one guy with the shield. He got a shield in front of him, and he's telling the guy, he must be telling the guy to stand still or don't move or whatever. And then another authority puts a net over his head and catches the guy like that, almost like with a fishing skimmer that you would see. Actually, something like this, except with a net at the end, right? Very, very bizarre way of dealing with this. And then what happens is they put a black bag or a bag over his head, and then they spray down the authorities with some kind of spray. They're spraying each other to kind of disinfect themselves. But it just goes to show you that, yeah, I know the Chinese are being extreme in it, and that's great, but what's happening really is that we're not getting the full picture. That's the bottom line of this whole thing. This thing is far worse than the Chinese authorities are allowing to leak out. We say there's 77,000 cases. I don't believe that for 1 second, not at all. You're seeing all over the world people waiting in lines for masks, especially in South Korea. I saw a picture on Drudge, I believe, people waiting outside to buy masks. And at this point, I'm not really sure what kind of mask they're buying, but if it's a surgical mask or if it's a N95 mask, they don't do any good. I mean, they might do good for people who already have it, and if they cough, it doesn't spread. But it's not going to prevent the healthy person from getting it if the virus is near them in the air. So that's the bottom line. Nothing's going to really protect you fully unless it's a N100 or P100 mask. And I've had people ask me, well, what's the difference between the two? And there's really no difference as far as protection from the virus. The only difference between the N and the P is that the P is oil resistant and the N is not, which really doesn't make any difference as far as protecting yourself from the virus. So if you can find them, you can pick them up anywhere. But I'm keeping kind of daily tabs on availability of these masks. I went into Walmart yesterday. Of course, they're not available there. I think if you really wanted to get some, you may want to check Home Depot, because not many people know that Home Depot does carry P100 masks. Actually, they're the pink not mask, filters. You put them on the side of like sort of a respirator. They kind of just notch in there, and they can be used not only for viruses, but painters use them for fumes. So you may be able to find some there. I'm not sure how expensive they're going to be, but you could probably find some. And I also would recommend goggles, and one that I use is from DeWalt, and it's about $10. You probably could get those on Amazon. $10, a really nice tight fit, because the virus will pass through the eyes, as evidenced by the doctor in Wuhan who was wearing one of those P100 masks or N100 masks, but he wasn't wearing goggles. All right, so he ended up catching it, and his speculation before he died is that he caught it through the eyes. So you want to have masks and goggles, and I also recommend gloves. So latex or non-latex if you're allergic to latex. I prefer to latex myself. They seem to last a little longer. So if you can stomach the latex without having an allergic reaction, I'd go ahead and do that. And then the last thing, I was able to get this on Amazon, called Clorox, and let me think about it. Clorox Healthcare bleach, and it's more expensive than regular bleach, but supposedly it works really well and that healthcare professionals use it. But I think that minus that, if you don't want to spend the extra money, because it is a lot more expensive, regular bleach you should have on hand as well. And they're still available in the Walmart here in Sarasota, but I've heard from various posters in some of my groups that they went to Walmart and they couldn't find it, but you can easily find it on Amazon. Regular bleach, or even Walmart.com regular bleach. I just ordered 8 regular bleaches for $37 shipped next day air. So that's still available. And you want to have some Clorox wipes if you could, or Lysol, one or the other. They're both antibacterial. I don't know, somebody questioned whether Lysol would kill the virus or not. It's better than nothing. I think, there's some reports that this particular virus can last up to 9 days on a surface. So you're going to probably start seeing the imports from China trickle, because you really don't know if, sorry about that plane, you really don't know if they're coming over here and then within 9 days maybe the virus is still on there. I don't know, people got to be thinking about that, right? I wouldn't want to get some imports from China. There'll be shortage of toys, just general things like that. I think we're sort of like on the tip of the iceberg. I think we in the US have been far too complacent with this since day one. I've heard nurses downplay this. Oh, you're more susceptible of dying to the flu than the coronavirus, etc. But that was before. I would wonder now if they would say the same thing, because you're seeing more and more widespread cases on different parts in different parts of the world. So I bet you they wouldn't go out there on a limb and say that if I went and re-interviewed them. So again, very complacent. The mainstream media is kind of annoying. Of course, you know, they were kind of downplaying this whole thing, and they were saying, well, you know, especially like CNN or MSNBC, that, you know, they have people on there saying that, oh, you're a bigot if or a racist if you're perpetuating these rumors, etc. Well, I'm certainly glad that I didn't listen to any of them. I really am, because they're so useless. I mean, much of the mainstream media just totally bypassed this, in the U.S. media at least, totally bypassed this. And now you're starting to see it more and more, because I even posted about this on Facebook. You're like about a week ago. I said you're not really going to start to see a widespread coverage of this until the stock market starts getting affected. And now, over the last couple of days, yesterday and today, we're seeing the stock market affected. And now you're seeing reports all over Drudge. You're seeing it at Fox. You're seeing it CNN, MSNBC, all over the place. And it's not surprising. They're very predictable, right? I mean, there's certain things that people gauge and that are, you know, that are important, and the stock market's one of them, right? The economy goes, so has the stock market goes the same way, and the stock market's a good predictor of the economy. And then the other thing is, and you know, make no mistake, I'm a huge Trump supporter, right? But even Trump is saying out there, oh, we have this under control. And, you know, he's not obviously saying it to, you know, for a couple reasons. One is not to create panic. But secondly, you know, he wants to get reelected, and he realizes that if the economy goes down, his chances of reelection go down as well. Even though we have such a really bad set of Democrats running right now. God help us if Bernie wins. In any event, he needs to stop that. He needs to, like, take control of it and acknowledge the problem. And I know he's asking for billions from the government to combat the virus, which is good, but he needs to back them up with words. Not on one hand say that everything's under control, and then on the other hand, you start to see, you know, obviously that it's really not under control. And there's another thing that I read, and I don't know if this is true. Maybe some of you viewers out there can tell me whether it's true or not. But it concerns me is that we really don't know how many cases there are in the U.S. because apparently, from what I've read, and a number of different sources, from what I've read, there are only 3 main labs that can accurately diagnose someone having the virus. So how do you really know? I mean, there's a bunch of people being monitored. I mean, hundreds of people in California, I think almost 400 people in Michigan being monitored. How do you know if they have the virus until after, what, 14 days? And now, and here's the other thing, really interesting. China just came out today and said in order to say that we are virus free, it has to be in a certain area. We have to have 28 days without a new case. So what does that tell you? To me, at least, this tells you that the virus has an incubation period of up to 28 days. So far more, in fact, double the amount that is being widely reported out there. It's being widely reported that you have 14 days of incubation period, which, again, who knows what's true and what's not true. But in any event, go out there and, you know, don't panic, but make sure that you get your masks if you could. Get some bleach, get some gloves, get some goggles, and freeze-dried food. I can't find any that's a reasonable price, and even if hang on one second, I got a plane taking off. Even if you have the ability to get freeze-dried food, the prices right now are just like outrageous. I mean, when I was getting freeze-dried food over the last couple years, I spent as low as like $70 on a 30-pound bucket from Augustin Farms, and now those same buckets, and that's the one with the 300 servings, 307 servings, they're going right now for like up to, I've seen as high as $219 a bucket, and that's not even getting shipped out right away. It's saying, yeah, we'll ship you sometime in March. So in any event, I just want to give like sort of an update on what I know, what I understand. You could take it or leave it. It doesn't matter to me. I know what I know. I have a background in biology as well as engineering, so I'm coming from an informed opinion, and I do a lot of research as well. So I hope you do take some of the advice, and I hope you all continue prepping. And let's say the virus does pass over and it's not as bad as we think. It should at least be a wake-up call for anyone who hasn't prepped out there, because pandemic is the most likely scenario for an SHTF type of event. And you know, I put this in Facebook. You know, you have homeowners insurance, you have auto insurance, and why do you have that? It's in case something bad happens, right? You may never use it. You know, I have a house in Miami, and I have homeowners insurance in case of a hurricane, and I've happened to used it. I've used it, but it's the same premise, you know, and it costs a lot less. It's a one-time investment. Get the stuff, you know, even if it's over a couple months or whatever, just get it and have it stored there, and at least you're not complacent and you don't have to feel panicked if something does happen, because panicking makes good people do desperate things. In any event, hope you enjoyed the video, and Vermont Prepper out. Make sure you check that link that I'm going to put in there. Take care, in the description. Keep prepping.